Hello and welcome to This Week in Laker Football, your exclusive weekly look into the West Bloomfield Lakers varsity football team on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. I'm Tyler Kieft, alongside West Bloomfield Lakers head coach Zach Hilbers. The Lakers coming off of a homecoming loss, 10-38, the final score in favor of the Clarkston Wolves. They take the outright OAA-Red Division Championship for 2025, their first since 2020, but that final score doesn't tell the whole story. It was a close game right up until the early portions of the fourth quarter where Clarkston really stepped on the gas and was able to finish strong. Let's go through the first 36 minutes or so of that ball game. They get out to a quick score, but then your team was able to answer back, take them punch for punch, and stay in the game. What was the key early on as their offense was firing? The Bowman brothers, Wajenko, were having a game from the jump to keep yourself competitive and limit how they were able to execute.
Yeah, it was a really close game. You're right, and it was into the fourth quarter. And I think a lot of that had to do with I told our offensive coordinator Ken Rise, is probably my favorite drive of the entire season. That second quarter where, they had done some things well. They were up 7-0, and we went on a 9.5, 10-minute drive to tie it right before halftime. And in a lot of ways, really could have controlled the game after that point, getting the ball in the second half. But we kind of gave up a field goal at the end of the half, which got them a little bit of momentum going into the locker room. And it was really close until it kind of unraveled for us the last few minutes.
Take us through those last few minutes, because the only things you can maybe see changed immediately from the viewer's point of view would maybe be the rain came in the factor. And Clarkston made a couple of big plays later on. It gave them a rush of momentum late in that game, but it was still 17-10. It was not exactly a lopsided game at that point. What changed that turned the momentum in favor of Clarkston so severely that they could then run away with the final score?
I give them some credit. They made some big plays. They went for a 4th and 1 deep in their own territory with a 7-point lead. I didn't think they were going to snap the ball. I thought they were just going to try to hard count us, and they picked it up where, we get a stop there, and it's our ball at the 25-yard line down 7. You feel pretty good about crawling back into the game. And then after that score, we tried to get back into it with a screen pass that we liked the design of and just threw it right to a D lineman. It was pretty, unfortunate. It was tough because when the snowball started rolling, I don't think we responded quick enough in kind of stopping their momentum, which is probably the only frustrating thing about the game is that, we had chances, it was a close game, and we just let it slip from us a little bit quicker than I thought we should have.
And it's one of those things, too, where you're 7 games into the season. For the most part, you've been firing on every cylinder all throughout the year, and you haven't met that point where a team catches that kind of momentum and you sort of had that skid. So now that you've been able to weather that, what's the focus in terms of turning that into a learning experience as you go into the final 2 weeks of the season, and then presumably you're going to go up against one of the top teams in the state, either in round 1 or in the district finals?
Yeah, you can't avoid good teams in Division I playoffs. You're going to play them. So I guess, if to answer the question, the lesson you can learn is, if this happens in 3 weeks, your season's over. And we can be right there with a really good team with a chance to win it. But, if you don't make the winning plays when it's time to win, your season's going to be over in 3 weeks. So hopefully we can kind of take the positives from it, and learn from some of the other things too.
One of the positives of that game was that you were still able to compete with a really tough defense. They have a lot of veteran players on that defense coming back. And talking to Coach Pinter before last week's game, not only were their starters coming back as veterans, but they had reserves that were depth players even last year and the year before that. Those are typically the kind of teams that give a younger offense in particular, but even a younger defense in some respects, a lot of trouble. How are you able to hold your own for so much of that game, even despite the veteran versus the youth matchup on Friday night last week?
Well, I think our run game's been pretty physical all year, and I got to give those guys credit. They really were again. With Jeremiah up front and Travis were awesome, and Obi and Will, and everybody ran the ball really, really hard. I might be off by a little bit, but for the most part, the other 3 games in the OAA-Red against Orion, Adams, and Oxford, those 3 teams combined for 170 yards rushing against Clarkston, and we were at about 140 ourselves. So pretty much the same production. on the ground. So they've been shutting people down, running the ball all year, and we thought we had some really good sustained drives. But you have to be able to do that over 4 quarters against a team like that, and unfortunately we didn't.
Yeah, they're a really solid team at all 3 levels defensively. They don't allow a lot of big chunk plays. You were still able to make those passes to Willie, a touchdown pass to Joel Davis on just a short route that typically doesn't happen that far in the red zone. His second receiving touchdown, first since week number 1, and then some of those breakout runs that Obi had, a 4th down and a 3rd down conversion that were really at key points for Will Espy. It teaches you a lot about what your team's made of as you go into presumably some even tougher matchups going forward, and especially when the season becomes super competitive. So all of that being said, how does a game like that, where through 36 minutes you got a lot to be cheerful for, boost the confidence and show the abilities of a team like West Bloomfield as we enter the terminal stage of the season?
Well, I think part of it is, too, us learning throughout the year, what type of team we are and what we do best to put us at our peak on both sides of the football. And that's probably leaning a little bit more towards ball control. If we can run the ball like that against that quality of a team, that might need to be a little bit more of our identity, because that'll keep their offense off the field and give us a chance in the 4th quarter in a close game where anything can happen.
West Bloomfield 38-10 loss last week against Clarkston. 2 losses in a row, 1 against Oxford, 1 against Clarkston to end the OAA-Red division schedule. They go into the blue this week, a crossover game with Bloomfield Hills. CivicCenterTV.com/LakersSports for all the information you need on where you can see that game on Friday night before they come back and play against Roseville in the final week of the regular season. So you take the loss against Clarkston, really tough loss, a different kind of tough loss than you had the week before in the final minute against Oxford. But you combine all of that, I'd imagine there's a different motivation coming off of 2 consecutive really tough losses in different ways to finish out the regular season strong and sort of rebuild that momentum for a playoff time. Leadership becomes a key factor in that. How are the leaders on your team taking a driver's seat, even as immediately as after that game on Friday night, to get things back on track as you focus on Friday?
Yeah, I got to give them credit. They took control of the team right after the game and kind of set the tone and the message that we're going to finish this year strong, because we know what kind of team we have. And if we do our job and go on a little bit of a run here over the next month, you'll remember this game, but it won't be what you're remembered for. And that's really what we want, is to be remembered for making a run at this thing. And how we handle the next couple weeks will really show that.
It's happened before. Clarkston beat West Bloomfield in the regular season in 2023. They had a rematch in the playoffs. Similar demographic in terms of the maps. Could be something you see in 2025 if all the cards fall in the right way. West Bloomfield victorious in that playoff game 2 years ago, sent them off onto the semifinal. Coach, any lasting thoughts from Clarkston, overall things to improve or lessons learned from those 48 minutes that you're going to take into this week and the final weeks of the season?
No, it's just the same as any other game, really. You just want to focus on, the things you did well, give the kids credit for it, and pat them on the back, and then also put a little bit more of a spotlight on the difference, the plays that really, cost us the game there in the 4th quarter. So we're just going to use it to try to get better next week.
You want to make sure you're peaking at the right time. That's in playoff time. You got a couple more weeks to get that right. Presumably, West Bloomfield going to be in the playoffs in 2025. So these are training opportunities these last couple weeks, opportunity to pick up a few more wins before you head into the playoff season. Coach, take a break. We'll come back on the other side. A key player that's been contributing to the Lakers in recent weeks, making big plays both on the offensive line and the defensive line, is Tristan Hunter. We'll dive deeper into his impact on the team with the man himself coming up after this. Stay with us. It's This Week in Laker Football on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. Under center, handoff, dive, Espy, up the gut, first down, down to the 15, homecoming king, takes the pigskin.
And he wanted that first down, and he got it. I mean, a physical run, but what really stands out about the physicality of that run, you see Travis Robertson at the end of that play put the defender into the ground, and that's what you want to see on these type of runs for first downs. Offensive linemen putting guys into the turf.
I suddenly collapsed. I could hardly breathe. Everything went dark.
I'm gonna help you. I'm calling 911.
Thankfully, 2 wings of light landed on my chest. and I was brought back to life. A stranger, a fearless hero, touched my heart and saved my life. Our hands are wings of life. Learn hands-only CPR. Visit heart.org/CPR heroes.
This is Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM.
Welcome back to This Week in Laker Football, your exclusive weekly look into West Bloomfield Lakers varsity football all throughout the season right here on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. I'm Tyler Kieft alongside West Bloomfield Lakers offensive and defensive lineman Tristan Hunter. Last couple weeks been a much different scenario than the first 5 weeks of the season, but one thing that's been consistent with this team is the attack from the front seven, especially on the defensive side of the football. You've become one of the focal points on that defensive line, getting in the backfield, getting to ball carriers. What do you think has been the key for you making that big jump this year to being one of the top defenders on this team?
Well, really just having guys like Jeremiah Benson and Tank Pittman that they focus on. They forget about guys like me. So, just being able to step up in that spot where they need me when they're focusing on Jeremiah and them, it's just been able to, just put in the work, put in the effort, and just being in the weight room and working on my skills all year.
And those are both three-year varsity players. They've had a lot of experience and played a lot of football here at West Bloomfield High School. How have you been able to learn from them and take that game then to the next level as you've stepped into this role in 2025?
Well, Jeremiah and Tank, those two of my closest friends. They've definitely gave me a lot of tips, helped me figure it out a lot of things. And, other guys like Brandon Davis Swain, even when, he calls me sometimes, tells me hey, work on this, or, you could do this better and stuff like that. So, they did step up a lot and did help me fit in that role coming into this season.
Tristan Hunter with us on This Week in Laker Football so far. 31 tackles, 12.5 solo through the first 7 weeks of the season. That includes 5 sacks. Got in on a lot of that the last couple of weeks. And these have been tough games. There's two really tough offensive lines that you've gone up against on the defensive side, but you've been able to hold your own. How does that help with the younger players on this defense, especially the confidence level going into these final 2 weeks of the regular season, and especially as you're looking toward probably playing one of the top teams in the state in the early rounds of the playoffs?
It definitely is a confident booster, being able to go out there and compete with guys that, some guys may be seniors, some guys may be, older, stronger, bigger. Being able to hold my own, it definitely gives me that boost and energy in myself and tells me, okay, you can hang with these guys. These guys ain't that much better than you. They ain't that much bigger than you. So that has helped to just being able to play big and make big plays when I'm needed.
You're also cooking on the offensive side, 8 pancakes the first 7 weeks of the season. Pretty good numbers for any offensive lineman at this level in Division I. So as you head into these final 2 weeks, especially given the last couple weeks how defenses have started to be able to figure out how to attack the backfield against the Lakers, how are you guys adjusting, keeping that confidence level high on the offensive side of the football in the trenches, where up until these last couple of weeks, and really only that last week against Clarkston, you guys have been protecting the quarterback really well?
Well, we have a tight group on that O-line. We try to, create as much chemistry as we can. So we do, as we come in practice, we always try to, say, hey, it's game speed, work like you're working in the game. So, coming to these next 2 weeks, we just working on the fundamental things, just kick stepping, getting the gaps right, getting the right blocks, being able to see the blitzes coming. So we really just going into these next 2 weeks, we just working on, the fundamentals, the basics, and, just getting back to us and who we really are and being able to just, score a lot more points, just protect the QB, make sure he's not running for, out the pocket and stepping up in the pocket, giving him time.
And I'd imagine it's easy to maintain that chemistry, to build those calluses, to work at this stuff when you're winning. 5 straight wins to start the season. That builds a lot of confidence in your team. Now you've had a couple of losses under your belt, too. You can learn a lot from reacting to those 2 losses and rebuilding week in and week out with your team. How have you been able to adjust, your team been able to adjust these first couple of weeks experiencing losses when otherwise this season you had been dominating in all 3 phases against more or less all 5 opponents previously?
Well, I'd rather losses be now than then. It did hurt, and I would like to go into the playoffs, 9-0, but things happen. OAA-Red is a really hard league, and, I'd rather get these experiences of these playoff-type teams because we'll end up seeing them again. We could eventually see them again later on. So I definitely feel like we're doing good adjusting, keeping a mellow head. This did bring our hunger up, losing these 2 games. This did just increase the hunger, make us not, look so much to the rankings. We did get ranked higher, and it could have hyped a couple of our heads up. So this did just bring us back down and bring us back to a level plane and just, make us bring that hunger back into us.
The reality is, it's not like this has been some massive fall off for the Lakers. It's 2 consecutive losses against 2 really good teams. Oxford, it took a miracle at the end in the final 30 seconds, a score that you maybe get once in your football career, let alone your high school career for most people, for that victory to go their way. And then last week, it was a ball game up until early in the fourth quarter. Clarkston just found that next gear and was able to put up quite a lot of points in the final minutes to make it a 38-10 victory. So as you keep your heads high and you go forward this season, what are those next steps that the leaders on this team and emerging leaders like yourself are looking toward everyone in the locker room to make to finish out this regular season strong this week and next, and then be playing at your highest level when playoff time comes around?
For our captains, Kamari Pittman, Jamal, Will, JB, and them, they definitely keep the team, level. We got, Coach Cam, he always tells us do your 111. So going into this, we really just everybody got to do their role. Everybody got to play their part. Nobody can, play hero ball. Nobody can step above the team. Nobody's above the team. Nobody's below the team. We all as one. And as leaders, people with voices on the team, we like to use it in a positive way and, just say, like, we all matter. We all got to play our role. If the next one guy goes down, next man up. So, going into these next couple weeks, we want to just say, do your 111. That's what we're preaching. Just do your 111.
And especially for linemen, you're on the offensive line, you're on the defensive line. You're one of a handful of players on this team that plays on both sides of the ball. When things are going really well, when you're making quick offensive drives, when you're making quick work of the defenses, it can be a pretty easy go of it. When you're playing a war of attrition like you were against Clarkston, can be a little tougher. But really, it's in those trenches that you set the tone, both from gameplay but also personality. So how much pride do you take in being a vocal leader on the sidelines, in the locker room, in practice, and then translating that to the way that you play